Can we talk about the Fed chief going into direct conflict with the president of the United States here, when the president of the United States is a rather gregarious individual?
Well, I mean, we can talk about it, but I mean, sure, let's go. And I have a lot of comments, but let's go. I mean, it's not my favorite topic, but let's talk about.
I'm not saying we devote the hour to it, but I'm not sure how we ignore the fact that the chairman of the Federal Reserve just came out and said, quote unquote, the level of tariff increases announced so far is significantly larger than anticipated, and the same is likely to be true of the economic effects, which will include higher inflation and slower growth.
Not a single thing there surprises me for 1 second. I'm just glad that somebody other than Tom Sosnoff and a group of other related, as they call them, tariff nutcases or sky is falling. The team of sky is falling people. He has the balls to say something, because nobody else has the balls to say anything in this entire administration. It's amazing. We have 1,000 politicians and nobody wants to say one single word. It's incredible. It blows me away.
Market doesn't like it. Bonds up.
Of course the market doesn't like it. The most idiotic economic policy in the history of this country, and everybody's scared to say a word because they're worried about their next fundraising, or are they going to be blackballed or blacklisted or whatever it is.
Where they're going to be the next target.
Yes, but they're not for 1 second worried about disruption or dysfunction in the financial markets, or the loss of or the loss of hard dollars, soft dollars, and the incredible amount of business that's being sector rotated and being country rotated out of the U.S. right now. Not even to mention the enormous effect it's going to have on U.S. higher on institutions, educational institutions, universities, master's programs and PhD programs, that instead of us draining from the rest of the world's going to drain from us. And it's a very dark situation right now, and everybody's afraid to address it. I have no idea why. And you know what, Dylan? I think Trump actually thinks when Powell's term's up, he's like going to be the next Fed governor.
That Trump's going to be the next Fed governor?
Yeah.
I'm sure he thinks that.
I'm sure.
No, I think he'll choose his favorite host on CNBC. Probably joke like a loyalist, just like he took the Secretary of Defense from Fox. I think Joe Kernan is a big Trump fan. I think he'll take his favorite CNBC host, who's the biggest loyalist, and make that person the new Fed chief.
I mean, if he doesn't do it, he made himself the chairman of the Kennedy Center. There's nothing that will stop him from making. Nobody knows
himself the chairman of the Federal Reserve.
Nobody is less qualified to be chairman of the Kennedy Center than Trump, and so why can't he be chairman of the Federal Reserve? And if not, you're right, Joe Kernan. Let's bring him in. Why not?
Bring him in.
It'll be Joe Kernan. It'll be who's the guy on the floor of the on the bond floor?
Santelli, Rick Santelli.
Yeah, Rick Santelli. Yeah, that's another guy. He'll be. Listen. I like Rick. I've had him. He's been in our office.
Who doesn't like Rick?
Yeah, he's been to our office multiple times. He's a Chicago guy. He's great. I love talking to him.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Sure. I love everything about him except I don't want him to be the chairman of the Fed. I don't have a bad thing to say about the guy. I'm not on the same side of the political aisle as him, and I would love to debate him, but I don't want him to be chairman of the Fed. And that's the direction we're going.
But I'm going to answer your question, because you sort of said incredulously that you can't believe that the first person to publicly defy the president of the United States right now in a coherent and meaningful
from Washington
way.
From Washington,
from Washington. So somebody with power. Obviously, anybody can blow.
Obviously, there's Democrats. Obviously, Pelosi and the whole gang of Democrats.
Someone with power.
Right.
Someone with power. Whether it be this, so the Treasury Secretary could say, "Hey, what are we doing?" Or the Republican leadership could come out and coherently say, "Hey, What are we doing?
Yeah.
The chairman of the biggest central bank and the most important central bank in the world could say, hey, this is, a problem.
Sure.
I think the reason why no one outside of the Federal Reserve will say this is a problem is because everybody is genuinely afraid of being targeted by Donald Trump.
Of course. Well,
that the people live in fear.
Yeah, that's that's when, people say, well, there's nothing wrong with our democracy. That's when democracies fail, when people live in fear of their leader, or whatever, a cult leader, whatever you want to call him. Wackadoodle. It's insane. But anyway, but
the bigger issue, there's layers and layers in this, and it becomes becomes uninteresting.
Sure.
At the end of the day, the markets are doing what they're doing. You got a whole network to talk about it. We can talk about it for I got overtime. You can talk to Tony. That's great. The fundamental thing, one of the things that is being risked, if not lost right now, however, is what would historically be called American soft power, which is, the American cultural influence, the American, I wouldn't say American exceptionalism, but American aspirationalism, that America represents or represented a aspirational
100%.
or an ideal, and that it was invested in your betterment, your That's why it was an educational magnet. That's why it was a healthcare magnet. That's why there's the healthcare, the medicines and the health machines that are available in Africa or to the developing world. And the obvious replacement of American soft power is China. And China's already in Africa. To those who say let China have it, who cares? America first. What is so flawed with just abandoning American soft power?
It's funny because people go, well, I don't really get this. Well, the easiest way to explain this is to say, if you're a really brilliant, you're one of these really brilliant kids in America, and you have an 800, let's say, I don't know what the SAT total is now, if it's 1,600 or 2,400, 1,600, but you have a perfect score on your SATs, okay, or your ACTs, and you're going to school and you ace college and you're going to go get your master's degree or your PhD or whatever it is, and no American kid goes, you know what, I think I want to go to grad school in China. No American kid goes, you know what, I'm going to go to grad school in Mumbai. Or I'm going to go to grad school. I'm going to go to the St. Petersburg Institute of Technology when you could. They just don't do that. Okay? We don't go to those schools.
Doesn't even exist as a thought.
Not even exist as a thought. Maybe occasionally a rare kid goes, to
London, to Cambridge or Oxford,
Cambridge or Oxford. Maybe that's it. Okay?
Maybe Paris for art.
Okay, maybe, but it's still rare, and it's a handful of kids.
It doesn't happen.
Yet the rest of the world comes to U.S. higher institutions for education, for networking, for cultural reasons. There's that's going away now, and people from all over the world, they're like, you know what? Chinese kids are staying in China, or they're going somewhere else in Asia, and Indian kids are like, yeah, screw it, I'd rather go to school here in India. And kids in Mexico are like, you know what? I'll stay at these Mexican schools because they're really good business schools, and they are.
And to those who would say, well, let them stay. Yeah, good. America for the Americans.
Sure, that's idiotic, but yes. Canadian kids are like, screw it. I'm going to go to grad school at McGill. I don't need to go to grad school. I don't need to cross the border.
In Boston.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so this brain drain that's been going on for 100 years is one of the things that made this country great. All of us have.
Because the reason finance is cutting edge. It's the reason tech is cutting edge. It's
everything.
The reason entertainment is global.
It's not an accident.
Medical.
It's not an accident that we are the center of liquidity, of capital raising. We're the center of all innovation, all creativity, every
biotech,
everything, every monster new company, just basically everything, 98%. And yet we're going to put it all on the line because somebody with a very small brain, for some reason, thinks retribution here is the key and everything should be equal. Like, it's just, it's freaky. And that's your soft power. You know, that's just the whole, it's taken 100 years to build that kind of goodwill, and then it's boom, out. And the disruption.
So then how do you explain this? Let's say again, we've done this. I don't want to be repetitive, but
no, I don't want to go down this. I don't want to go down this path.
How do you explain the smart people around him?
What smart people?
The Elon Musk is not a stupid man.
Well, we used to not.
And Elon Musk does not think, because no way Elon Musk believes isolationism and tariff isolation is the best path for America. There's no way that man thinks this.
I don't think so either. But Elon Musk also believed that having a certain kind of relationship and doing certain things to help would help him. And a lot of the businesses that he built depend heavily on government resources, on tax credits, on subsidies. And what better way to ensure the future of those subsidies than to get on the good side? What he didn't realize was that getting on the good side also didn't mean that he would basically implode himself and his businesses at the same time. So is he really that smart? Are any of these guys as smart as we think they are? You know, you've met a lot of CEOs in your life. I've met a lot of CEOs. Mm-hmm. And I've met a lot of people that are not CEOs. And there's a lot of smart people everywhere. There's a lot of smart people that are living check to check. And there's a lot of smart
intelligence and money has no apparent correlation.
I agree with you. That's my point. And so when we sit here and we go, you know, Elon Musk is a really smart guy, or Mark Zuckerberg is a really smart guy, well, or Jeff Bezos is a really smart guy. They were, and they did some really good things, but they're also not really that smart because they've also done a lot of dumb things recently, and they've cost themselves, 25, 35%. I mean, Zuckerberg's now fighting to protect from breaking up his franchises. The value of his stock is down by 40%, 35 to 40%. So how bright was this coalition, this loose coalition that they formed? So my question is, are these guys, they've obviously done, I'm not going to say, they all did it on their own. They don't come from any money. So it's not like this is handed down. And
it's not some European aristocracy.
No, not at all. No, they were brilliant entrepreneurs, but they're not that bright. They're not as bright as we give them credit for. Okay, like it's not like they're no brighter than the people that work for them. Let's put it that way, as witnessed by their latest set of moves. And so, again, the difference between the person who sits up here and makes $1 billion a year and the person that sits down here and makes $100,000 a year, it's the difference between those two is very little. Mm-hmm. Okay?
No question. Or for that matter, $20,000 a year. I mean, as you know, intelligence, again, the relation, I get that. What is your degree? I'm just trying. How would you calibrate the degree of risk at this point? I mean, no, that's the wrong way to ask the question. Obviously, you perceive the risk to be it's a red alert, right? Like the risk is like sounding the alarms, like where the risk is maximal. How recoverable is the situation? Like, in other words,
it's totally recoverable.
I think you see where I'm getting at. At what point is the damage that is being done? And no one will be able to answer this question.
At what point is it irreparable? At what point is it irreparable?
Or at what point, is it harder
to
recover?
Never. America's too big to fail. So even in his darkest, there's nothing long term that somebody like Trump or anybody else like him could do to harm America. America's too big to fail. Our democracy's too big to fail. Capitalism, we're too big to fail. I really believe that. I don't think that any of that is at risk. I don't like when there's doomsayers out there that go, Trump's going to kill this, or this administration.
This is the end of the empire.
This is the end of,
Rome.
I mean, is he going to set us back? Sure. Is he going to cause some pain? Sure. But he's going to ruin the country? Never. Nobody
Why
can.
is, but I mean, going back to the original question, which is, I said, why is soft power so important? And you gave me the spiel about being in the education, innovation, and capital magnet. But why does that? Well, how does? Okay, I accept it. But why does that mean we have to give free medicine to people in the Caribbean or South America or Africa or Central America?
It's called goodwill, and goodwill pays itself in. Goodwill is dividend producing, and you don't know exactly how it all comes back, but it does, because if goodwill didn't work, then we just wasted the last 100 years. The reason that America keeps separating itself from the rest of the world until recently was because we've effectively used goodwill as a content marketing mechanism to grow this country. It's something that people without empathy, it's something that people without that lack the ability to kind of see past like the very basic stuff kind of grasp. But we have been able to turn that goodwill. If it's spending a few $1 million, on healthcare in Haiti, or if it's spending, $100 million on healthcare in Haiti, if it's spending something, who knows where, but that the amount of credit that we get back from the goodwill that we put all over protecting the world, providing food to different places, providing healthcare, medicine, whatever it is, the amount of credit that we get back in that goodwill is hundreds of times the cost. And the proof is in our economy, in the wealth that we've created, in the amount of money that we have, in our ability to build more and more stuff. It's the way that our dominance has continued to grow over the gap between the US and everybody else has continued to grow. That's why countries like China, they've never been able to display that kind of goodwill. That's why Russia was so far behind. That goodwill is not something that they understand. And so what happens is now that soft power is an opportunity. China finally realized, you know what? Why aren't we providing goodwill all over the world? Because that's how we change our position. America's given us this opportunity now. They're taking our role. They're taking our role. They want to be Russia and China, and everybody else wants to be what the US was. The roles they should never be reversed. It's idiotic. That's what this administration misses. They're like, well, they charge us a tariff, so we'll charge them a tariff. Okay, you know how idiotic that is? That is just fucking stupid on every level. Every goddamn level. Like you can't rationalize it. You can't justify it economically. I mean, and Powell is telling you that. Everybody's telling you that. But for some reason.
But now today, the difference is now the Fed, the most powerful government official yet to date, has come out and said, this is a problem.
Because he can't be fired. You know what? The two people that have spoken up are the Chief Justice and Jerome Powell, because neither of those guys can get fired.
John Roberts and Powell, you're saying this is a problem.
Yes.
And no one else, no comment from any. Remember when I was in the Caribbean COVID prison for a couple of weeks?
Yes.
I don't know if you remember that.
You were in Barbados or something.
Yeah, I was in Barbados, and I was I did the podcast from prison, if I remember correctly.
Well, it wasn't exactly a prison, but you couldn't leave the hospital.
They had barbed wire and armed guards, and you couldn't go out.
That's true. Okay.
I mean, what's a prison? If you're put in against your will, if you're surrounded by fences with barbed wire, and you have armed guards, and you're on a military base at a prison, at a building that was used as a prison. I mean, what?
Okay. All right, you win. But what's your point?
All of the medical equipment was Chinese. My point is everything. It's the only time I've ever been under the supervision and care of Chinese medical equipment. Every single respirator, ventilator, blood pressure machine, because it wasn't a prison really, to your point. It was a hospital that was, a secure hospital, we'll call it. But my point is it was every single thing in that building was Chinese. And the Caribbean in general. My point is, before Trump, China was already on this in Africa, in the Caribbean, in South America, and then Trump's activity only opens a waterfall for China to cover the world in educational infrastructure, legit road building, all the roads in South America, all the roads in Central America, hospital building, every medical, every machine, every, like, again, literally, like, you need your blood pressure, Mr. Sosnoff. Well, it's Chinese machine now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, this is an opportunity that they've been gifted. We gifted them an opportunity. This is something that, we've been very careful over the last, number of decades not to gift opportunities. To give, you can't give countries like China.
It's like you're scoring on yourself.
Yeah, you can't give China. You can't open the door for them. You can't open the door for Russia. You can't open the door for different places around the world and give them an opportunity like this. We're handing this to them because, the bottom line is that the simple answer is he's not the brightest human and he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. And you've got people in his ear that are like, that shouldn't be in his ear, like the Kevin O'Learys of the world, the Howard Lutnicks of the world. These are people that are like, what? Yeah, these are complete morons.
Peter Navarro,
another one. And you've got these people in his ear and they're telling him certain things. And you're like, and you're sitting there going, you're listening to these guys? Why don't you call Jay Powell and ask him what he thinks rather than Peter Navarro?
John Roberts.
Yeah. Well, ask an objective economist or something, not a television personality, and that's all. And so I think that, so what that leads to, and this gets to me, what I really want to talk about was you disrupt the marketplace, our marketplace. Our marketplace becomes, somewhat dysfunctional. It becomes disrupted, dysfunctional. It becomes disillusioned. And what happens then is a couple of things that are really interesting. Number one, your currency gets devalued, whatever it is by, 5% or 10%. That empowers everybody a little bit. That gives them, all right, we just picked up a big number. It's free money.
Big number. It's a real number.
It's a real number. When the euro goes up 10%, it's a real number. When the Japanese yen goes up 10%.
When look at the Canadian dollar even.
The Japanese yen's up 10%, the euro's up 10%. These are real dollars. British pound's up. Everything's up. So every other currency in the world got super strong. That gives everybody more bullets. Then you've done some internal damage to our equity marketplace, which means you've essentially just pissed everybody off on top of that. And then you've made interest rates higher because of all the nervousness and the displacement in the marketplace. So the cost to borrow everything is more expensive. So what you've done is you've disrupted your own economy. You've increased inflation. And again, for what? For retribution, for stupidity, for ego? I don't know. You tell me. But the end result is you've also opened the door. You've cracked it open. So every other nation can go after your most valuable asset.
China and most notably China, Russia, who are your adversaries.
You've let everybody else into the goodwill model, the thing that got you there, your greatest content marketing. Now nobody even wants to visit here.
That's true. I wonder if you look at the whole thing. Do you feel like there's any real risk, though, Tom? I know there's. I don't want to diminish what you're saying, but from a trading perspective, especially now that you have me hanging around with those party boys and girls in London in the morning over at IG, where they do like these 1 and 2 and 3 day situations. I think being long the dollar right now, not to go trading talk on you, but I don't see how I think being long the dollar is a great idea at this moment, just on price extreme, to use one of your phrases. Right? In other words, I'm not worried that the underlying, Josh and I were talking earlier, like, it's one thing to have like these overarching issues, huge, stupid, terrible. I agree. At the same time, I don't see a risk of that. There is no currency other than the dollar. It's going to be a trusted reserve currency. The market, the center of capital and capitalism in terms of fundraising and exits and entries and all this is not going to move to London, or for that matter, Milan or Frankfurt or Tokyo or whatever. That basically the president of the United States is so rich and so powerful that it can indulge an idiot leader in idiotic behavior because there's no alternative. What are you going to do? And eventually the idiot leader will leave and things will go back to normal. But there is no alternative currency and there is no alternative capital market.
We've watched this take place in lots of places. Russia has an idiot leader, and Russia has, imploded. They went from being on a path to relative equality and competence and a very strong, a growing economy, a growing market, everything destroyed by ego, retribution, dumb crap. Putin's just an absolutely horrible person, a horrible leader, and he destroyed that country. It might take them 2 decades to get back. The brain drain has been so brutal, I don't even know if they can get back. And that's Russia. In China, horrible leadership almost destroyed their economy, their real estate markets, and essentially all their tech innovation. It hung on by a thread, and it's been able to hang in there. And then we just opened the door for them. There's been absolutely brutal leadership all over the world. It's not just, it's not just a U.S. thing, but big countries they've essentially stopped themselves, and that's been to our advantage. And now we're following that model. Oh my God, it scares the hell out of me.
The difference is Russia had land dominance, resource dominance, military dominance. It never had, even at the peak of the USSR, currency dominance. It never had currency primacy. The reserve currency, like I look back to going back to World War II,
yeah,
and Russia's like, oh, we want the East, we want all this land and all the things. You know where I'm going. The most influential thing a country can have in the world is to be the reserve currency, and the pound. We are like, okay, but goodbye British pound, 1945. So England wins the war and loses the empire, and the empire is defined by the currency, not by the military or by soft power. Honestly, do you think the currency is the reserve currency status is at risk? Obviously,
No.
You do not.
I do not, because like I said before, I truly believe America's too big to fail. And so I don't think about things like that. I don't think about that. I think we're bigger than any.
It's more just the opportunity cost of a period of time run by an idiot.
Sure. That's exactly what it is. It's just an opportunity cost. We're not going to get into, we're not going to Putin it. And the crazy thing about America is, like, you can have a very ineffective president like Biden, incredibly ineffective, basically non-existent, right? But not trying to override the system. Do you know what I mean? So
and not actively malicious.
Right. Exactly.
In non-existent.
That's how strong this country really is that you can have somebody that basically does nothing, and the country runs better than when somebody comes in and tries to do something. That's that's the scariest. That's what should scare people more than anything. We were better off with
nothing,
basically with a comatose Joe Biden doing nothing but just occupying the seat, than somebody who's coming in with his own beliefs of how the world should be run, trying to do something. Now we're 100 times worse off. That shows you how strong the basis is, the foundation of what we have here and what we've built, and how it's so hard to ruin it. That's what's got to piss off a guy like Powell more than anything else. He's like, do you know how strong this foundation is? Do you know that it's almost impossible to mess this up? Literally almost impossible.
But boy, he'll try.
Yeah. You basically have to try to destroy our democracy.
Yeah.
But, you know, what I really wanted to talk about, which we're way off, is just the disruption, the disruption in our marketplace and how that kind of trickles, not really trickles, but how that impacts all other aspects of our life. You know, because companies that with the inability to innovate, with the inability to, if they can't raise capital and they can't necessarily innovate that effectively without capital, and they start to lose their base, their foundation. The question is, how will that impact everything else that happens? You know, all the way down the line. Like, we already see how it's affecting things like, you know, precious metal prices, bond prices, US dollar price, all that kind of stuff. But man, it's big.
But in the context of this discussion, are you thinking of this in the context of the financial ripples or the cultural ripples? I'm just curious. When you're saying the thing that I really wanted to talk about today was this thing, which is
cultural ripples. The cultural ripples are important, but the financial ripples are what I wanted to talk about. Because the destabilization of our financial markets is possibly what we're looking at. And even during COVID, where the markets were rocked, they weren't destabilized. There's a difference. You know, even during 9/11, where the markets were rocked due to a terrorist attack, they weren't destabilized. In 2008 and 2009, when the financial crisis hit, the markets, there was a destabilization of our markets that brought a level of fear into the picture that really scared everybody. We thought there was the potential for.
Well, the question is a dollar a dollar? And in 2001, you never questioned if a dollar was a dollar.
That's right.
Literally. And you never in 2020 asked, is a dollar a dollar? Now, you may not word what the dollar, but in 2008, you did ask, is your dollar a dollar?
That's exactly. So the markets became very destabilized in 2008, late of 2008, 2009. And it was the first time in my life, even in the 1987 crash, I didn't think of things as far as destabilization. I thought of things as, you know, it was a disaster, it was a catastrophe, it was like something I couldn't even imagine. But not for a second did I worry about the destabilization of our whole financial system. In 2008, 2009, I did worry about it. It's the only time in the last 40 years I've thought about that until now. And I think that's kind of in the back of everybody's head. Like, you know, is this the tip of the iceberg? Or is this the worst? Or is this just the tip of the iceberg?
I think for sure that is the question. And the reason, there's a good reason to think it's the tip of the iceberg, only in the sense that there's 3.5 more years just on the clock alone. This can't possibly be the end by virtue of the time on the clock.
There was, and that's a question I can't answer right now. Like, I personally, if you would ask me,
I'm going to just, sorry to jump on here, but the only sort of comforting thing would be the argument, just to my comforting argument to myself, as I even say that, is yes, but the bond market eventually will bring this thing under control. That's why the bond market exists. Like, you want to get wild, you want to get crazy, you're not going to lose a reserve currency. It's not going to happen.
Nope.
You're not going to lose educational primacy.
Nope.
Quickly. You could lose it over decades, but you're not going to lose it in one semester.
Agreed.
And if this gets too wacky, whatever that means, mathematically, the bond market will bring it under control.
I'm inclined to think that the first thing that comes to mind for me is that we've seen the worst already. Because I don't, like, we've had the earthquake. I think what we're going to experience now is a few aftershocks, but I don't think that it gets worse than it was a week ago or 10 days ago. Like, I think that was the quake. And I think these are going to be some aftershocks. I don't know how fast we'll recover. If it gets worse, it would surprise me. It's possible, but it would surprise me.
How is your trading different today than it was a month ago? Not tactically. I know tactically, sell premium, price extreme, all the Sosnofian things. But is there anything that's structurally different in the content in this moment than it was a few weeks ago because of the integrity issues?
No.
So it's still just extreme in volatility as ever.
Yeah, I'm never going to change. Like I'm never going to change. I'm never going to believe that I'm never going to believe that what we have will fail. I can see, another earthquake, if we're going to use those terms. I can see, another ugly earthquake possibly, but I never believe we're going to fail. Never.
So your emotional reaction at this point is one of anger. You're pissed.
Yeah,
of course. Basically, people doing a bad job more than you are worried about the future of the enterprise.
Of course.
You're just angry at poor performance, terrible, piss poor performance.
If it ain't broke, what are you trying to fix? Like if it's not broke, what are you fixing? You're just ruining everything.
Like why are you going to force the central bank chief to be like, what are you doing, man?
If everything's fine, what are you trying to prove? You're a lame duck, dude. Doesn't matter. You're a freaking lame duck. Who cares? Play golf. Take off. Don't worry about it. You're done.
Go beat Joe Biden.
Exactly. We'd be fine. We all be fine.
Use the auto pen.
Yeah. Yeah. Put it on autopilot. It's fine. But
we should be. It would be interesting. I'm sure if Vecchio was around, I could get this number out of him pretty quickly. But it'd be interesting to see. I'm interested to look on like Kalshi or whatever the betting markets are right now for the probability that Trump fires Powell after today's insolence.
Well, I don't think you can. I mean, it's not.
I mean, if you can deport a man to El Salvador for no reason and leave him there, you can do whatever you want.
I don't think you can
and
fire.
You can make yourself the chairman of the Kennedy Center. He can make himself the Fed chief. I mean, it's come on.
I don't think you can fire the chairman of the Fed. I think it's an appointment, and you would have to. I could be wrong, but I would assume you'd have to essentially impeach, or you'd have to have cause. You'd have to have. There'd have to be some
insubordination.
No. Insubordination is not cause. It would have to be fraud, criminal activity, something like that. Impeachment. I'm pretty sure you can't fire the Fed chair.
Embezzlement.
Yeah. Well, if you committed a crime, that would be, impeachment. But
how about us buying some dollars? Can I get, because Rich McDonald and I, who's my new best buddy over in London, we're buying dollars this morning. We're short the euro, we're long the dollar, just on price extreme, just on the too much too soon. Come on.
I mean, the euro today was absolutely. I felt the same way, and then the euro ended up closing up 1,000 over 114. It's not closed yet, but it's insane numbers.
It's moving stronger than ever.
Yeah. So you're not up any money yet, that's for sure. Yeah, I think the euro's overpriced. I think gold's overpriced. But who knows? I think bonds are too cheap. But again, I don't know.
Good luck to you.
Yeah.
Good luck to you.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about, I know we're running the clock a little bit, but
yeah, we're going to wrap up here.
The economic slowdown and the correlated collapse in the price of, not collapse, but decline in the price of oil, actually very good to weaken Russia. Accidentally. As all the petro states.
Yeah, I mean, that's an old school way of. That's a very old school way of thinking about it. Russia, Russia's benefiting right now from a decline in confidence in the U.S. more than they're getting hurt by a drop in oil prices. The drop in oil prices is mean reverting for the most part, because oil is one of those commodities that just, fluctuates around. The loss of U.S. confidence is probably worth 100 times what the drop in, it's Russia couldn't even get a telephone call back before.
They're losing one to make 100. It's
right.
It's a jackpot city.
That's right. This is the loss of U.S. confidence in the loss of confidence in the U.S. is worth 100 times what a decline in oil prices cost them. So I don't buy that at all.
They'll take the oil loss every time to watch the U.S. Make a fool of itself to the world.
People will pick up the phone with them now. They couldn't even get a phone call returned, before. So, yeah.